If you look at this cluster, which is mostly gray, as I change the magnification, you're going to see there's some algae embedded still inside of this one. Hi, welcome to Evidence for Faith. It's your host, Michael Lane. We're not in the studio right now. We are out not too far from where the studio is. We're in a park. It's called the Jacob Yar Park. And it's not too far from Kewaskum, where now we have our ministry based. I was out here the other day with my grandkids and my wife, and we were walking around and playing and stuff and swimming in the lake. You can see the water behind us. But as I was walking around, I saw some trees like this one here. And if you notice, there's some interesting life on this tree. This is not moss. It's not moss, but there's an interesting type of life here. Actually, there's a couple of different ones that you're going to see here. These are called lichens. Now, it's not moss. There is some moss here. Down at the bottom, you see some dark green, sort of fuzzy. That's moss. Moss is a true plant. It has a different texture totally than what these creatures have. This creature here, I'm going to point at with the knife here to make out the different ones. Here's a different species. You can see a different color. These are lichens, L-I-C-H-E-N. Now, a lichen is actually a combination of two different living things living together at the same time. It's amazing how God put these things together. And what it is, it's a fungus, usually in the yeast or that's an Ascomycetes or a Basidiomycetes group, like a mushroom type, but it's a fungus, but inside the fungus, it has an algae or a cyanobacteria, a blue-green algae, if you will, that lives in its tissues. And so there's no roots, there's no leaves, there's no stems on these things, so they grow on practically everything. You can find lichens like these things in a host of different colors, and they can grow on anything. They grow on rocks, they grow on trees like this. Maybe they grow on the roof of your house. I've seen them growing profusely on propane tanks, on rocks around, or near the water. They're found on every single continent, even Antarctica. They are found there. These guys can survive no matter what the conditions are. Why? Because this fungus has something inside of it, indwelling it, that gives it the power to do this. Another living thing. And what it is, it's an algae or a cyanobacteria, which we commonly call blue-green bacteria. But they are photosynthetic. So the algae lives right inside of the fibers of the fungus. A fiber of a fungus, the individual fibers are called a hypha. And this has different layers, but there'll be packets of these algae actually growing inside of there. And this algae, of course, uses the beautiful sunlight and the moisture from dews and rains and things to photosynthesize and make sugars. The fungus then utilizes the oxygen and utilizes the sugars. And they in turn make minerals and things which can actually benefit and help the algae. So you have two living things living together at the same time. Now, we can call this, usually this type of symbiotic relationship, we call a mutualism. Both are benefiting. Though there are some biologists that actually, they say this is really not a mutualism in all of the lichens. Some of them, the algae is sort of like a parasite in a way, but I sort of look at them and I view them more as a mutualism. We are next to a propane tank. You wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of life growing on a propane tank. But again, as I said, lichens can grow anywhere. Look at the lichens along the bottom of this tank. You can see it, and they flake off. You can see it coming off very easily. You can see there's a couple different species. Notice the coloration here. Again, this shows they don't need roots, stems, or leaves. And the reason they're on the bottom is because this tank has so much propane in it, and there's a temperature difference between where the liquid is in the tank and the top. Thus, we get condensation, and the condensation goes more to the bottom of this tank. Since there's more water there, there's where you see the most growth taking place. Here's a rock. I mean, growing on a rock. Now, this is not the same as having a pet rock, but you could have a pet rock that has a lichen on it and keep it and even spray it with water once in a while and keep it happy. You'll notice that there's a couple of different species that are on this rock. Again, you have a golden kype that's here and this pale green that seems to be very abundant. Both these species seem to be very abundant in this area, but these can come off. Notice, I just took this one off. I'll just set it on the knife blade, and you can see there is a lichen. Now you can eat these, like I say, if you want, but you'll notice as I turn it over, it's gonna be very dark on the back side. They don't have roots. Instead, they have something called a rhizine. It's not a rhizoid, if you're familiar with that term, but it's just an anchor. That's all it is to help it hold on to objects like rocks or like metals and trees themselves. But these are lichens. That is a beautiful lichen. And this type here has sort of a leafy-like look to it. So this one here is called a foliose. These that are sort of the orange color that are sort of crusty are called crustose, the type there. It's not the species, it's just the way they classify them. There's about 7 different types of lichens that you can find, and there's a lot on this rock right here. So this rock, no, the rock's not alive, but the lichen is. Isn't that cool? As we're walking along the lake here, we are walking next to this railed fence. And just looking at this rail fence, we can again see different lichens. Lichens are growing on this top rail in particular. Obviously more sunlight for the algae to be able to photosynthesize to feed the fungus. And you can see there's the golden type here. There's a beautiful, the same one we've been seeing, the same little specimen here. And again, these can be just flaked up. As you can see, I can easily pick that up and there, it's just flipped over and you can see the other side of it. There's a darker green color here. There's a grayer one back over here. But this rail is just covered in lichens. Beautiful examples. As I say, lichens grow on almost everything that you can think of. If it's solid and sits around, you can have a lichen growing on it. Here we're at the well cap for the well in this park. Notice on this metal, lichens growing along the edge. Isn't that cool? Like I say, they can endure and live almost anywhere. It's just amazing because they have this algae living inside. This fungus has this algae living inside, and so they're able to live almost anywhere. They even grow on the cap of a well. There's 400 different species, roughly, that you find in Wisconsin, where we're at right now, of over 1,000 types of lichens. And they have remarkable ability to grow even in the most worst and the most harsh condition. They don't need even rain at times. They can absorb water vapor right out of the air. And since they have the algae indwelling them, they can survive in almost any environment. They can endure droughts. They can endure extreme cold, extreme heat. They grow very slowly, but when it gets wet, they grow really well. Matter of fact, some are very susceptible to pollution. Years ago, they used to measure these in cities. You actually measure the growth of these things to determine how clean the air was, because pollution stunts their growth and sort of inhibits it. Doesn't generally kill them too much, but it slows them down considerably. If you go way up north into the Northwoods of Wisconsin or some of the northern parts of the United States, away from the industrialization, you'll see lichens in high abundance all over the place and all different types of species. I'm kneeling here next to a tulip tree. Now this tulip tree is not very old, but already it is covered with lichens. You can see there's a lot of different colors here. Lichens come in so many different colors and in some cases shapes, and it depends on the type and their species. You can see some gold color here. There's a pale yellowish green that's sort of speckled. No, that's not spray paint. That is actually lichen. Then we have some more of the dull green color that you see, and even there's a darker green. So there's different ones that you find here. And again, these are a fungus with an algae indwelling it. Now, lichens have been used for centuries for different things. Native Americans used to take certain colors of lichens and then boil them in water and then put cloth and stuff in it, and it would dye their clothes. They've also been used in some cases for medicines, different type of medicines. Actually, there is an expectorant that is made, that is primarily made from lichens. Also, they make antibiotics from certain species of lichens. There are so many different uses for this. Native Americans often used them as an emergency food source because lichens are very high in minerals. Now, some of them taste really bad. I mean, some are so bad and make your tongue want to snap off its roller. But there's a fascinating thing about that too. If you're out in the wilderness and you don't find food, you can start peeling these lichens off. Some of them come in big sheets and you can just pull them off and soak them in water. And if they taste bad, soak them in water overnight. The next day you take them, dry them out, and it's like breakfast cereal. They don't taste as bad because the bitterness of the bad taste is water soluble and comes out in the water. We're now in the studio after walking in the park and collecting a couple of the lichens, which we brought back with us. Put them inside of a small little beaker. We added water to it, just ordinary H2O, and stirred it around a little bit, let them get wet and soaked for, about 30 minutes or so. Then, taking a pair of forceps, tweezers for you non-scientific people, picked up a piece of this lichen, just a small little piece of it. And what I did is I put that on a glass slide, a brand new glass slide, never been used before. Then, using the forceps and a dissecting needle, I sat and just pulled it apart, just teasing it. And as I teased it apart, then I put it on the stage here of my microscope. And we're looking at this now. This is at 100 magnification. And we're looking at this, and I've been teasing a little bit more while it's on there so that we could take a look and see what the inside of this fungus, this lichen looks like. It's fungus and it's algae together. So let's take a look inside and see what we see. If you come straight down, you'll see this. It's just sort of grayish color, just a blob, and it doesn't look like much. It's like just a blob, just a weird shaped thing, sort of cylinder to a shape. That is the hypha. Actually, there's a bunch of hypha, a bunch of fibers there together. Together we call that a mycelium. A mycelium is just a bunch of hypha put together. A mushroom, when you look at it, the stem or the cap of the mushroom by itself, just looking at it with your eyes, what you're looking at is mycelium. With a microscope, you can see the individual fibers. This is a little piece that still I couldn't tease apart very well, but you'll see some others. Now, in this, you will also see little green spheres. There's one right below that, a green sphere, bright green. That's the algae. Now you can see here together, right in this, just a little bit above center. I'll try and bring it to the center. Right now we're in the center, and you have the uncolored object just above a dark object, but along this dark object, it has a greenish tint to it, and you can see there's actually little green spheres. Those are the individual algae that give this lichen the ability to survive. Okay, now, if you look right in the center, you will see a structure that has no real color to it. It looks like it was done with just a pencil on white paper. And what that is the fungus. That's a whole pile of the fungus, and the algae is not in that. The algae has been pulled out of it. And you can easily see the fungus here as you look at that, because it doesn't have any coloration to it, which is so cool. Right in the center here are fibers, all clumped together. They're colorless. You can see the black lines of them. Those are individual hypha, individual pieces of the fungus. You can see this as clear as can be here. The fungus without the algae embedded in it. Okay, what we're looking at right now is another large piece. You'll see a lot of the grayish color. That's the fungus. But around it, in different areas, you'll see bright green. And as I change the focus on this, you will again see right there in the center, the algae. The algae all clumped together. Around you can see a couple of algae just off to the sides, just a single little alga cell sitting over on the side. But we'll go back to the cluster itself. And as you look at this cluster, which is mostly gray, as I change the magnification, you're going to see there's some algae embedded still inside of this one. Because deep inside the gray, you see some green coloration. In between where the large stalk is coming down from 1 o'clock, right at its base, you'll see a large, just almost dead center from 12 o'clock, just right over at the base of that shaft. It's embedded inside the algae, a green cluster of chlorophytes living still inside. Now, in the center here, what we're seeing is a cluster of green spheres. These are the algae that powers and gives oxygen and sugars to the fungus. And they're sitting here in a cluster. Inside of a lichen, there's a surface part. Underneath the surface part is a large section where you see a lot of the algae. And then right underneath that is a whole lot of the hypha. And the hypha branches up inside that. And it's really interesting to see. This is a big cluster of algae from inside the lichen itself. That's why you see this beautiful green color here. So I've taken a piece of the lichen and put it on the glass slide with a drop of water. And you'll notice all I'm doing is just pulling it apart, just shredding it. Now I'm going to take a cover slip and put this over the top of it. And with this now, we can take a look using higher magnification. So let's see what we get now at 400 magnification. This is at 400 magnification, and what you're looking at right now is a piece of hypha. Notice there's no real coloration to it. Let's see what else we can find as we go through here. Oh, look at this. As I play with the fine focus right now, we aren't using any stain, so that's one reason it's a little hard to see, but you will see clear fibers running all over, which is the hypha of the fungi. But inside, you can now see the green spheres of the algae. And it's green because of their chlorophyll. That is a great example right there of a lichen. Was not that cool? As I say, lichens are a mutualistic relationship. You have two different things living together. The algae empowers the fungus to be able to live anywhere. It can go through the harshest conditions. It can go through droughts. It can go through massive floods even. It can go through extreme cold, extreme heat. You find them almost anywhere. And what makes it possible, the way that God designed these two organisms to live together in this relationship is so interesting, and it's very reminiscent on what God does with us. You see, when we become a Christian, when we become born again or born from above, God puts his Holy Spirit in us. In Romans chapter 8, verses 8 through 11, God tells us that the Holy Spirit indwells us to help us to go through our life. So we as Christians, we're still living in this fallen world where we run into problems, we run into droughts and difficulties and stuff, just like a lichen does. As the lichen survives it because of the indwelling algae inside of it, we as Christians can survive this and actually flourish in this, just like a lichen, because we're empowered by the Holy Spirit. Again, Romans chapter 8, verses 8 through 11 tells us the Holy Spirit indwells us. As a biologist, I study lichens, and we study that a lichen is a fungus with an algae indwelling it. What a great example. I hope you've enjoyed this time coming out here to this park and seeing the beauty of God's creation. And even things that you walk past on fence rows and on rocks and stuff you'd never noticed before, now maybe you'll recognize these a little bit more as you walk around. I challenge you, walk around your neighborhood even. You'll see them in cities, you see them in the country. See the lichens and take a look, because it's a great example of what God does with us. So thanks for joining us. Until we meet again, take care and may God bless.
Support the show. Become a donor at evidenceforfaith.org/give.